As Jan indicated, we have a special guest speaker, which is the Commissioner of the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. Katie Schraff Dykes is the Commissioner of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. She was nominated by Governor Ned Lamont to serve as the Commissioner of DEP and was confirmed on February 20th, 2019. Katie previously served as chair of the Connecticut Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, PURA, from 2015 to 2018, and as Deputy Commissioner of Energy at Connecticut DEP from 2012 to 2015. Katie also served as the chair of the Board of Directors of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, Inc., from 2014 to 17. The RGGI is a multi-state effort focusing on reducing carbon emission from electric generating facilities. Katie joined Connecticut DEP in March 2012 after prior service as Deputy General Counsel of the White House Council of Environmental Quality and as to the General Counsel to the U.S. Department of Energy. She's a graduate of Yale College and the Yale Law School. And we'd like to thank Sid also for helping bringing our special guest.
You know, it's just great to look out over this room and see so many Water Pollution Control Authority members who are present. You know, the work that you do it's the Lord's work. I mean, I know that in a home rule state like Connecticut, we have this incredibly critical infrastructure in our water pollution control, you know, facilities, and the fact that so many of you are serving, you know, without compensation on your local or municipal WPCAs is what keeps this state running. You provide such a critical service, and thinking about where you find the time, the dedication that you bring to your job, and then the role that you're serving. I just say hats off to you, because what we do at DEEP we cannot possibly accomplish without your incredible service. So I just want to thank everyone here who serves in those roles. So we've got a lot to get done. I'm really excited to have this opportunity to serve as the Commissioner of DEEP, and thrilled to be here with my predecessor, with Sid Hillbrook. We have. In the Lamont administration, Governor Lamont is so focused on helping to turn our economy around, and we really thinking carefully. He's given a strong direction to all of his agency commissioners to ensure that we're focused on getting the most value out of the dollars that we carefully steward, whether that is our appropriations or our regulatory actions, or thinking about what we're proposing in terms of bonding for the state. And he's had a lot of discussion about the debt diet. Some of you may have heard about that. It's really prompted a lot of good communication within our department, the Office of Policy Management and the Governor's Office, to talk about how we can really prioritize the investments that we're making and that we're committing our future generations to making in terms of our bonding to their highest and most impactful use. The Governor's budget fully funds the Clean Water Fund for the coming biennium. And I'm really pleased to say, I know everyone in this room appreciates the importance of that as we're working through this prioritization. We've had, the opportunity to really reinforce the importance of those dollars in helping to catalyze the investments that towns, the municipalities are making in wastewater abatement. So that remains a very important priority. And in part, that's because of, not just what we've been able to communicate from our standpoint as an agency in this interagency dialogue about these dollars and this prioritization, but what the administration, what legislators hear from all of you, and from environmental stakeholders who we know care deeply about preserving the quality of our waterways. So I think this is something that I'm pleased that the Governor is prioritizing, that we're prioritizing at DEEP. We know that these dollars are truly a catalyst, they're truly an engine for investment. The Connecticut Clean Water Fund is among the most generous in terms of its match in the country, and we recognize how important that is to ensure sustained improvements and investments in these facilities around the state. As I mentioned, of course, the governor's focus on economic development, growing jobs, and supporting our, and reinvigorating our economy is critically tied to the quality of life and the quality of our environment here in this state. And I think we're really, at a turning point here. We're at an important moment as we look at how we're going to achieve that continued economic growth into, the next decades. I think in Connecticut we have, one of our great sort of unfair advantages, if you will, is the quality of our environment. When you think about the quality of our drinking water supplies, the investments that we're making in our infrastructure, this is what, making these prudent decisions today, working in partnership with municipalities around the state to ensure that we're doing good planning and that we're putting our dollars to work to help improve our infrastructure. This is what's going to distinguish us perhaps from other states that may not be prioritizing that planning and decision making the way that we are. And in years to come, I think this is going to increasingly distinguish us from other regions that are competing with us for economic development. The Clean Water Fund is absolutely critical to assuring that our streams and our rivers are clean from pollution and raw sewage. We've made a lot of progress in that area. We have a lot, more to do. But I think that as we continue that progress, we also have a new challenge, or at least a challenge that we're seeing more and more every day playing out in our environment, which is the challenge of adapting to climate change. And I think that that's something that our good planning today is going to have to take into account. And again, we're going to be measured not in the matter of centuries, but in the matter of decades or years about the degree to which we invested smartly today to address. To make sure that our infrastructure can adapt to more frequent and intense storms, the slow increase in sea level, and so on and so forth. So when using clean water funds, many of you are already including resiliency as part of your planning and design of wastewater upgrades. And that's so important to ensure that we can safeguard these important public works. I think that we're coming to a time very soon when, the markets that are valuing our infrastructure, our property values, our credit rating as a state are going to be looking to how we have insulated these long-term investments and prepared them for what is soon coming to us and is already evident. And so again, we have to think forward. We have to think very carefully, utilizing the best science that we have today to make sure that we're future-proofing these investments as much as possible. That's not just good for for the environment, but it's good for our economy. Because these are the fundamentals that are going to determine, the value of this infrastructure very soon. And so the decision making, that you all are undertaking in your role as WPCA members, this has to be front of mind for us all. And so we're really thinking a lot at DEEP. I've had some great conversations and meetings just this week about how we can do our job to bring the best available science to your decision-making and our decision-making as an agency. Working carefully with, we have great, stakeholder expertise out there to assist us with this. We're very blessed to have the resource of CIRCA and UConn, which have been doing some great work helping to map this global challenge to, what it will mean for communities here in Connecticut. And so I see it as a very important task for for me, as the Commissioner of DEEP, to make sure that we're carefully communicating how we're incorporating that science into our planning and sharing it with all of you so that it can be actionable for your decision making as well. Our kids, our future generation, our stewardship of these precious dollars that we're investing in our infrastructure really depend on informed decision making, and we want to play a role as a department in helping to catalyze that. Lastly, I'll say, you know, I'm just fresh off a tour at the Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, and I have to say one of the secret pleasures of that job was getting to know a lot more about water infrastructure through our regulation of investor-owned water utilities. And so I also have a real curiosity and special interest in this nexus between energy use and water conservation. You know, we all know that energy efficiency assists in reducing energy costs at wastewater treatment plants, which in turn influences operational costs. And I think we focused a lot, you know, on electric energy efficiency conservation programs, but I'm really pleased in this new role to have the opportunity to help accelerate the work that we're doing in terms of water conservation as well. It was really exciting just a little over a week ago to stand in Governor Lamont's office as he signed his very first executive order, which is committing the state to an expanded sustainability program, which includes a goal of reducing water consumption in state buildings by 10% by 2030 from a 2020 baseline. So, you know, we're making this a priority within the footprint of state government and state operations, and you know, I know that it intersects a lot with helping to reduce costs for the whole system that we rely on for our drinking water and cleaning our drinking water and handling wastewater. So anyway, it's a really exciting moment. I think it exemplifies our governor's commitment to sustainability and to careful stewardship of our natural resources, but also to, you know, utilizing or seizing those opportunities in part as a mechanism to lower costs for taxpayers in state government. And I think that that's a mission and an opportunity that we see, you know, in so many areas and so many levels of government. So I'm just really eager to, you know, to work with all of you. It's great to be here and to have the opportunity to hear a little bit from you about what your, you know, what your questions are, what your concerns are, what challenges you're facing, and what opportunities you see for us to work together. You know, just in this past few weeks, it's just been a privilege, although I've worked in state government in Connecticut on the energy side for about 6.5 years, but to, you know, have my door open and meeting a lot of folks in new sectors that I haven't had the privilege to work on before. And so I just want to extend to all of you, I hope we have a little bit of time maybe for some Q&A, and certainly if we don't have the opportunity to address all questions, or if there's a thought that you have that you don't want to share in a large room, you know, feel free to reach out. My email is just katie.dykes, D-Y-K-E-S, at ct.gov. My chief of staff gets a little upset when I share, you know, invite more meetings, but that's the only way to learn and to hear from folks about what their concerns are. But I'm happy to hear your questions today and ideas about how we can work together. Right. Oh my gosh, absolutely, absolutely. I think that, you know, we're a big contributor to supporting the federal government in our tax base, and any opportunity that we have to leverage, you know, our state dollars with federal incoming, we race after that. And I think that we've been waiting, frankly, for some of that leadership or at least, consensus building in Congress to move infrastructure investments forward. And, and we have to continue our progress while we hope that those opportunities come forward. But we have, great representation in D.C. With Governor Lamont's office there. We're in good conversation with his staff in Washington and with our delegation as well. It would be fabulous to have the an injection of funds because we know that there are so many priorities that we need to invest them in this sector. And I think that that's the key is when those moments arrive, right? Having a good sense of what the pipeline of projects and how to invest them. When I had the honor to work in the Department of Energy in the Obama administration in 2009, and at the time we had the Recovery Act, and I saw, witnessed firsthand there a sleepy office in the Department of Energy that all of a sudden got a $6 billion appropriation that they needed to push out to 50 states, very quickly. And from that vantage point, you could see the difference between states that were prepared, that knew if the dollars came, what they were going to prioritize and where they were going to invest. And I think that that's the most important thing that we can do. We have to continue to prepare and prioritize and communicate to voters and to our communities about the need for these investments and how they provide value to our communities, to our environment, and then we have to and with the framework that we have in place, should we have the good fortune of federal dollars coming in quantity, to be prepared to know where we would put them and how we would execute that. But it's great to see you, Commissioner. Thank you for the question. Any other questions? Yeah, right in the back.
We work with COPCA and we're trying to merge actually. But my question is on the industrial waste permitting that at present DEP is trying to take the miscellaneous permits and passing them down to the local authorities, in which is going to cost the local authorities quite a bit of money in order to be able to implement and to be able to keep track of in the following years. Do you have any comments on that, please?
Sure. Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. And, we know that we have received a petition from MDC for a hearing, on both of the general permits I think that you're referencing. And our staff at DEEP are currently, in mediation with MDC and stakeholders. And we've made substantive progress, clarifying and streamlining the requirements of the miscellaneous GPs. I think with respect to the unfunded mandate kind of concern, I kind of understand that perspective. From our point of view, we don't see any new obligations that were intended to be imposed on the local WPCAs through these general permits. This has been, kind of a responsibility under federal and state law and the respective NIPD's permits already. But obviously this is a little bit of a different sort of framework or at least implementation kind of approach perhaps, and we want to hear the concerns and work through them, but as we contemplated moving forward with this, that was an important consideration for us. So great question. Any others? I know you have a great agenda today, so I don't want to hold. Oh yeah, there's a hand.
Talking about reclaimed water, there's only a couple plants currently in the state that have permits to utilize that. I just wonder what your thoughts are on the future of that.
It's not something I'm as familiar with. I think, in my experience, it's kind of come up in the context, let's say, of new power plants, being proposed for the state and the opportunities to perhaps not use just, potable water for those uses. And it takes a lot of advanced planning to help bring those opportunities together when developers or investors are coming forward who could utilize those types of water sources as opposed to drinking water quality. But it's something that we want to explore further. And I think as we move forward with the sustainability executive order, we want to hear not just about what we can do within state facilities and state operations to achieve efficiencies, but how other governmental entities or WPCAs might bring forward ideas that they have, and including the one that you're suggesting, that we should consider to ensure that we're not just that we're sort of catalyzing not just action within our state's footprint, but things that are complementary to efforts that municipalities and others want to undertake. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you so much for the time this morning. And as I said, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I know we have more deep speakers up today, but appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all this morning. Thanks so much. Thank you, guys.